We don't have minutes to approve from last time. Right, so we will open application 2358C, which is a conditional. That's not checked. So, there are two tiny houses. I'm just reading what it says project description. There are two tiny houses occupying a parcel of 2.73 acres. At this time, both can be used as residences. On one could be an official studio and the other a residence. At this time, the zoning is unclear. The septic has been approved by a registered design who found both the water flow and septic adequate. Are you the applicant?
Yeah.
So, all right, I just got to swear you in.
Okay.
Assuming they don't see anybody else that's going to testify. So do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth to the best of your knowledge under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I got on here.
Yeah, so that's, it's kind of confusing. So I've been living on that property for several years, the old tiny house. Had a new tiny house delivered, last fall or whatever it was, and, was brought to my attention that it might not be, in compliance zoning wise. So I came to check in with Tom about that. And he was saying that because both dwellings can be used, I mean, because both buildings can be used as dwellings, they both have to be counted as dwellings. And therefore, because I don't have 4 acres, they're not legal. So my question at this time is, and that's what's not very well explained in that conditional use thing, is how do I make one of those work? And I just take out one of the apparently dwelling units have to have a kitchen facility, toilet facility, and a sleeping facility. So can I just remove the cooking facilities and cap off the propane that feeds those and render that a non-dwelling unit? Originally I went in with that because Thomas said, no, I couldn't do that. So therefore I was going to apply for conditional use that both be dwelling units on less than 4 acres. But if it's possible to simply render one not a dwelling unit, then it's back within zoning guidelines.
What would you rather do?
I'm kind of neutral at this point. There's pros and cons to both. As you know, about long-term rental, it's very hard to come by. So from that point of view, that's a positive. It's going to take quite a bit of money at this point. As I go forward, more and more money to make it the power work, to bring the septic up to code for both. I'm going to already have to do that anyway for the new house. So I'm kind of depending on which way the wind's going for you all as to which way to go with it. I mean, I'd love it if it was an open option because much money and can make it available to people. I know at least 3 people who need long-term rentals. I don't feature doing this in Airbnb. But through my own that decision. But at this point, the simplest one is to simply render it a non-dwelling. But again, as I said, long-term rental, it will open it on.
So you're obviously aware of the accessory dwelling. You're obviously aware of the accessory dwelling units because you were kind of listing some of the stipulations, but
what constitutes a dwelling unit? Yeah. Finally clarified that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't introduce myself. So Max Field English, chair of the DRB. Sorry.
Yeah. Holly Cook. Okay.
Brian will DRB.
Bruce Wheeler, Mike Perry.
Deb Klein. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we should have introduced.
Sorry.
So first of all, is that clear what, I mean, okay, because, okay.
Could one be an accessory unit? Could one of the units fit the definition of an accessory unit?
Oh, it's when you say that it's dwelling unit,
Yeah.
yes, I've been using that as a dwelling unit.
How about the square footage of the two of them? Like,
14 by 24 for one, 14 by 32 for the other, so approximately 432 plus 450.
so it seems like the extra unit, the accessory unit has to be less than 800
No.
square feet. If
It has to be, it can be either 30% of the square footage of the original building or up to 800 square feet, according to.
right,
That's right. The latest state rules is up to 900 square feet.
okay, whichever is more stringent. Whichever was larger, it says in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's larger.
So that makes it a maximum of 800 square feet.
Makes
it.
And it doesn't matter if that original house is only 200 square feet. You still have an accessory dwelling unit that is 800 or 900 square feet.
So my question is there one that's less than 800 square
They
feet?
both are. I mean, I don't know, do you count the basement as part of the square footage? 14 by 32, approximately 450
Living
square feet.
space, I believe, but I don't.
Unless it's fully finished.
Right.
Definitely not. Yeah, I mean, to me, what it was, the question was the fact that I had less than 4 acres, which is less than 2 acres per dwelling unit.
So,
So that would have been a conditional use.
and I think that's why Tom nixed the idea, right? Because it's one dwelling unit, 2 acres.
Right.
So the way I understand it, accessory dwelling units do not count towards that calculation.
Oh, if they have a smaller square footage.
No, they don't count, period.
Okay, I mean,
That's
what
what I
I would
understand it. I mean, I'm having trouble finding that written. The only place I found it written out was in Williston's bylaws. But if say you have 4 acres,
yeah,
she could build whatever she wanted, 2 houses, no limitation on anything. Other than the same limitation we have for any other house, height and dimensions. So the way I understand this accessory dwelling unit is that one of them has to be occupied by you or the owner. They have to both be under common ownership. And beyond that,
okay, that's something that builds for the roads.
so that's, at this point, that's my opinion.
So there's no limit, so you can just keep putting another one and another one?
No, so the rules state, and this is actually off the state, the Act 179, this is the updated one. The bylaw should have the effect of excluding as a permitted use. That means people don't have to come to us, you permit that yourself. One accessory dwelling unit that is located within or appurtenant to a single family dwelling on an owner occupied lot. Bylaw may require a single family dwelling with an accessory dwelling unit to be subject to the same review, dimensional and other controls that is required for a single family dwelling. Accessory height, setbacks.
Density is one requirement.
No, because if you did that, then that, I mean, that's the only restriction that it's not required to have.
It also states in Title 24, Chapter 117 of the Vermont statutes, something about existing small lots that have already been subdivided by the time we enacted any kind of restriction on ADUs or any other kind of dwelling units. Existing small lots, any lot that's legally subdivided in individual and separate non-affiliated ownership from surrounding properties and is in existence on the date of the enactment of any bylaw, including any interim bylaw, may be developed for purposes permitted in the district which is located, even though the small lot no longer conforms to minimum lot size requirements of the new bylaw or interim bylaw.
So this lot hasn't been subdivided yet, or?
No, she would not be able to subdivide it.
Right.
Yeah,
But-
no,
Right, but it sounds like if the square footage, or I'm sorry, the size of the lot is the one thing exempted from the auxiliary dwelling unit. To your point, they're only allowed one, but they are allowed one.
Exactly. So they're held to every other standard. In both of those dwelling units, like you said, they have to have cooking facilities, sleeping facilities,
Cooking bathroom/toilets.
yeah, all of those things.
And you were actually going the other way, you're saying, would I have to maybe remove one of those? to
well,
make it
yeah,
not-
my impression from Tom was that it wasn't to be allowed, so hence the hearing.
Sure.
So that was, yeah.
So you are required, you know, to do whatever septic design, water
Yeah.
design, all of that.
Yeah, we're on that. You know, we don't want, that's the only thing, and then fine, on to us. Okay.
And there's no, are there any restrictions in terms of who can occupy that space, or does it just say that the owner has to occupy one and has to own both?
That's right. So the owner can actually occupy the smaller unit if she wanted to.
Sure.
Okay.
I guess I have some questions for an issue. The building permit filed was for a shed 14 by 32. So what is there now is not
Right, and that
with
sorry.
what was
And that was,
requested.
what you're talking about is tied to the new tiny home that was delivered? Okay.
Yeah, these are two
Right.
separate dwellings that would have to be assessed as two separate dwellings.
You're saying the premise for a attached shed?
Correct. And I looked at the wastewater permit, and so certainly currently two separate dwellings do not comply with the wastewater permit as was issued. So I have a problem there.
Well, so she, that's the conversation we just had, that she's aware that she has to update her wastewater permit.
Specific system can handle it, RJ has said it's had adequate capacity, basically needs to redo this and then go from there.
So being a 2-acre lot, it was never exempt from Act 250 unless it existed prior to like 1973.
I'm not sure what that means.
So when Act 250 came into effect, lots under 10 acres all fell under its jurisdiction. But pre-existing lots at that time, I believe, were left to be exempt from the wastewater rules. But if it was created after that point, then a septic design had to be made, which is probably what our big is looking at.
Yeah.
And at that time, I believe the minimum septic designs were for like 3-bedroom houses.
And it is. Yeah, he's reviewed it. I just stopped the process until I knew how this was gonna fall out. The limiting factor right now is for the well capacity. And we did a preliminary assessment of that, so that he's probably gonna do, another person was involved until we realized our RJ was limited. So he might go and do another test to be sure the well volume is adequate for the two. That was the limiting factor.
So just curious, when you say tiny home, is it like a prefab thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, is like, so
Yes, it is. Describe it now.
Yeah.
Shed.
So I'm just wondering in retrospect, what should that permit have been for a shed, from the Mennonites to be, consistent with what we're, looking at or talking about today?
well, I mean, there's nothing in the building permit that indicates it would be an accessory apartment the original structure of the parcel is 14 by 24. The one that was delivered this fall is larger, it's 14 by 32. So to me, that's not the intent of an accessory, building, something that would be, added to. I mean, this is
Yeah. Within the state,
overtaking the original dwelling.
within the state verbiage, it is okay for that to be larger. But I guess the question is, should there have been a different permit filed? And what would that, how would that have been different, and is it relevant today?
It should have said something about, I would think, about an accessory apartment. From a lister perspective, this is what we go by, is a building permit on how to assess these structures, and these are two separate dwellings, as far as I can see, and so.
And what's always the intention was to have them as two separate.
Yeah, and at the time, I wasn't sure how it was gonna fall. I had heard from him that we had talked about whether it could be a rental.
Right.
So that was the conversation that I remember, and I don't think that's the impression he had, but anyway, and that was the one where he said you need 4 acres for 2 dwelling units. And then someone told me, no, they changed the law. And so I had come back to him a few weeks ago and said, that's right. And then he finally looked at the actual online guidelines.
So in order for us to say, hey, this makes sense as an accessory dwelling, do we have to do something different with the permit? And what does that look like to you?
Well, I guess I'm just wondering, how would there not just be a new rule that you can have 2 dwellings on a 2-acre parcel?
Well, essentially, that's what the state said with these accessory dwelling units.
So then do we need to, as a town, change something so that it's less confusing?
Well,
Like point to their rule?
Yeah, because some people are gonna think you have to have 4 acres when the state is saying, you could have 2 on 2 acres.
and
As long as they're under.
right, any parcel that's allowed to have a single family home can have an accessory dwelling unit. That's their verbiage. And the way I take that is that you can have in the town here, I don't know, we've got half-acre zoning in the village here. Somebody could have an accessory dwelling unit on that lot.
But it's gotta be same ownership, and it's gotta check all the boxes except for the acreage.
Right, the density.
Yeah.
So this all, came about, I think it started in like 2018, and we're talking about the housing crisis now. We're really seeing it, where price of land is through the roof, and there isn't even anything to buy as far as houses go. That all started a few years ago, so the legislature's been looking at that.
So on page 67 of the bylaws, 5.013,
Yeah.
it does say including all density requirements need to be met. So that is not true.
Oh, it's only if such a dwelling unit may be subdivided and or converted for conveyance or use as a principal dwelling, only if it is found to meet all of those requirements, including density. She can only subdivide that lot if she has 4 acres.
But again, we're not talking about subdivision at all now. It's an accessory dwelling conversation.
Right. So that's, that makes it, makes, the where we're going here even more clear, because it's only in the case of the subdivision that you have to meet the density.
So do I need to update the wording of the permit, or is it just? Okay.
I'm very uncomfortable giving a permit to 2 dwellings on 2 acres.
Well, I suggest you get some clarification from someone at their state or whatever. As
So you guys can sign the agreement.
Yeah,
to,
2.73 acres for whatever that's. Okay, so,
Yeah, it seems like the main thing is making sure that the wastewater for both units all checks out. And if we were to sign this, I think if anyone was to sign something, it'd be contingent upon that all being approved.
it's just like any other bill.
Yeah, exactly.
so basically I just fill out a new permit, with the board just calling it an accessory dwelling unit. Okay. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Well,
Anything else needed?
did we want to take a vote?
Oh, sorry.
Is it-
Anyone on Zoom have any questions? The application was for conditional use,
It was,
so,
it shouldn't have been.
right, so it's hard to make a motion on that.
It's nothing really even to do with us, to tell you the truth.
Correct, so if we. I don't know, it's an actionable item.
I think the question is who's reviewing the new application? Is the development review board reviewing the application? Or
Because the permitted use would just be zoning administrator.
Zoning administrators got to review that.
Is there a need to make a motion to do no action, to take no action on the request?
I think that's not a bad idea to get that recorded.
do they actually require a new application?
Well, you know,
Yeah, the DRB wouldn't, but the zoning administrator should.
something maybe a little more clear.
I guess my question too is this binding on him, or can he take unilateral action to deny it?
Actually, I think we could probably direct them to sign that. Right? But I don't know.
You can make an appeal. This hearing's an appeal on a conditional use.
Right, so is that what it's written as? Maxfield is.
Well, that's the.
I was given
And accept-
several times for the discussion.
But so, I'll rule that it didn't meet her requirements, she appealed. You originally told us it was going to be an appeal.
And, right, and I had more than one instruction on what I should fill out, and it was never quite clear on what one did the situation.
So this, we are sitting in essentially an appeal to her decision.
Right,
Okay.
that's what I thought.
It does, so 323.5C was conditional use. But, I mean, just the fact that it isn't written that it's an appeal. It was, Tom, when you wrote the, in the minutes, it says an application.
Yeah, the appeal was the first one, then she put.
I've got May 16th, I've got May 9th. Oh, yeah, okay, so that one is checked as an appeal. Why is this newer one? What's the difference between the May 9th and May 16th? Why are there?
I was talking to Tom during this time, trying to figure out what the guidelines were. And he had originally said it really didn't matter what form I filled out. It were all basically the same thing. So I started with the variance, which he said had to show hardship, which there really isn't. And then he said the conditional use fit the description better. And I thought those were being both under the label appeal. Apparently that's a whole other thing with a different form, is that right?
Of an appeal or a conditional use?
appeal, that an appeal is different. I thought conditional use or a variance came under the headline of an appeal, of appeals. And I was apparently wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the appeal usually is like in response to a decision, you know.
So is there a form I should have filled out, where would I just come as?
I think it would just a permit, right? If it's the permitted use in that district, then it would just be a building permit.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like she's asking for anything outside of pre-established existing rules.
So, you know, because we were getting confusing information, I would say is refile the permit the way you want it. So if it says an accessory dwelling unit. And
Okay.
And am I reading correctly that she has to pay $100 every time she puts in a piece of paper, and do we really need her to do that
I
again?
didn't think so.
Okay.
Select board members here, maybe you can clarify that.
I would, my 2 cents is I feel like you shouldn't have to do that again.
I would feel like you shouldn't have to read it.
That could be part of the motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
so,
were seeking, clear which piece of paper to fill out, so I would like to suggest you don't ask her to pay on that piece of paper.
okay. Okay, so just going forward, a building permit, make sure that the water situation is addressed. And that satisfies the whole. All right, well, thank you all.
Do we want to, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, at this point.
Do we want a motion to, I mean, it seems odd to be granting an appeal when there doesn't need to be an appeal.
Well, he did reject the original. So it was. So. Trying to figure out the word. That's.
Yeah, it's
Well, does the new permit need to be recorded?
It would have, yes. It should be clear.
So are you waiving recording fee of $15?
I'm fine with that.
15, I was more concerned about, let's not make her another $100 for a form that's been submitted once or twice now.
So when you submit for the building permit, just state exactly what you want to do, but not, that I'm gonna make an office or rental.
And so the wording would be, okay. And can the wording simply be open use, or it has to be?
Spell it out as accessory dwelling unit, so that all of the related things that you talk about are clearly applied.
Yeah.
And if at some point in the future you want to end your accessory dwelling unit, then it's a change of use permit. It's just another permit.
And that may be reflected in these taxes.
Yes,
Got it.
I would think. But you're
Okay.
not gonna be-
And so that brings me back to my original question, that if I did want to terminate that, can I simply remove one of the three things that makes it into a dwelling unit, or do I have to?
Say this is just one dwelling unit now. There's no limit on the number of kitchens you can have, and the number of bathrooms you can have, and the number of bedrooms you can have in a house.
And your house doesn't necessarily have to be all one piece. If something that's over there, it's gonna be
All right,
But if it is an accessory unit, then it has to have all the pieces.
It's a question of occupancy, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes,
Spelled
but if you're saying, hey, it's not accessory unit, it's all one dwelling, then I think the key is, okay, well, then there can't be like another tenant, like it's one occupant, right? Like the owner occupies the building, even if it's a piece that's open there.
okay.
That would be the main differentiation, right? In addition to not calling.
So if I wanted it just to be one dwelling, does the wording of that one still needs to change regardless?
The permit,
Because
you would file a permit.
Just
but currently wasn't it permitted as an attached shed, and so that wouldn't have to change? If she chose not to use it as an accessory dwelling.
Well, I'm not sure, so now we're really confusing things. If you file a permit for an accessory dwelling unit, you now have a house with an accessory dwelling unit. If you want to go back the other way, you just have to file a change of use permit. And, yeah, I believe that's that.
Okay, yeah, I just meant the wording of this permit, whether that.
Yes, you have to have another permit.
Would still be,
Yes.
right.
And there may, the reason that this matters is because the listers would assess these conditions differently for this.
Absolutely.
Well, I would entertain a motion that the DRB takes no action on the appeal, but advises the applicant to resubmit a building permit for a conditional, or sorry, accessory unit structure, and that the DRB requests the select board to waive the application fee.
We should at least have something in there of the accessory dwelling unit should be approved. Because otherwise, Tom still is not seeing the light that I'm under.
Well, it is a given that it has to pass through the septic requirements and all that kind of stuff, right? Or do we have to say something on that?
No, that's true of any building
Yeah,
permit.
right.
I don't think we, yeah.
Well, the motion hasn't been made yet, so. We want the motion to say that the DRB takes no action on the appeal, but directs the zoning administrator to grant the building application as described by the applicant.
For as accessory dwelling
Yes,
unit.
accessory dwelling unit.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Anyone online, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay.
So,
You like your tiny house?
I do. I like both of them. It's been very hard to choose between the two. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
All right, so it's 33, opening 2387C. Conditional use, there's 50-foot tower on the project description, but I know there was more. You're Nick, right? Yeah, so I'll swear you in. So do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, to the best of your knowledge of the pains and penalties of perjury? Okay, so I guess you could, because it's just on here, it just says 50-foot tower, so there is some more stuff in here, but you just want to kind of brief everybody on.
So what we want to do is put an 80 by 100 maintenance shop at the former Ridge Wolcott Road. Like we have water well rigs, 8 of them now, and they need maintenance every year on towers. And we want to be able to stand the tower up inside the building, so we thought we would do a roof system with a we call it cupola style, that we can raise back, drive one rig in, raise the tower up, back another rig in, raise the tower up, and be able to work on the towers. Presently, for the last 65 years, we've been working on the side. Yeah, this is a little stuff that we were going to make it look like a barn style cupola on the building. We do want a high scale building because all of our machineries, the crushers from the Wolcott quarry would come down there for maintenance during winter time. Loaders that would come in there that have really white buckets on them, so we need a 60-foot bucket that we work with. It's the maintenance facility pretty much. We've got a wash station in it, so we can wash stuff pipe with leaving the building. Maintenance. And then, you know, we tested the well has been drilled prior to me buying it from Ben. We may have to increase the flow on that, we think on that. Minimal. But I think we meet the setbacks from the road. Power's there, which is nice to get 3-phase power. And it's well needed.
If you're calling it a tower, it's really just a tall building to.
It's a tall building, yeah.
So the condition of use on this is because of the height.
Yeah.
But we normally cap at 40 something.
Well, he's looking at 50 feet.
Limit visibility of other houses in the substantial way.
I don't see that it will because it's I call it the old chicken barn. It's across the road.
Yeah, it is.
And that's what I face. The houses that are down below. There might be one that might see the end of the building, you know, overlooking the field.
Would it only be the cupola, what we're calling the cupola, that's in excess of the height limit?
Yes,
Are you thinking about putting actual windows up there?
we are.
Because that'd be good for a bunch of reasons.
Yep. No, we have to in order to light this building up.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
We plan on putting solar on the south side, roofing, geothermal heat and cool the building. You know, we're doing a lot of that now, so it's.
Okay. The fact that the part that's in excess of the height limit is going to be large glass is not irrelevant.
We're normally building look like a barn,
Right.
you know, it's pretty customary in that sector of lighting.
There's a site plan there.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah,
So if some of those are operable, that'd be good for your letting the heat out too, right?
Yeah.
When I first saw these drawings, I thought they could be added to the existing garage, it's really not a used car, right?
Right. Where I store my trailers.
Yeah, so you're right across the lot, like you said, where your trailer from.
Yeah, should show. Yeah.
That's existing, that's great.
Probably will be a steel structure, simply because of the height and the width. We're trying to make it an open span again. Maybe with an overhead crane in it so that we can run the crane back and forth to go. So,
Space your trusses and whatnot, so that you can keep that open space in the middle that you need.
yes, yeah.
Seems clear. So this would be basically approved. If there is to be a variance to the existing code in terms of height restrictions, or how would we approach this?
well, on height limits, it's 4.06, if anybody's looking, it's on page 42. It talks about appendages that are not used for human occupancy, just rooftop elements, chimneys, ventilators, tanks, or similar parts of the building to exceed the permitted and conditional height limit, provided all roof appendages occupy an aggregate of not more than 20% of the building. So it looks like the consulting engineer, that was the first point they talked about, is that the elevated center represents exactly 20% of the footprint, which is allowed to exceed the maximum height for the district.
And if we were to in fact call it a cupola for purposes of lighting and ventilation, even though that's not your primary concern, then it would be an appendage in that regard.
Spires, steeples, minarets, cupolas.
Yeah, they list them all in there.
Makes sense to me. I think the biggest question is if there's any objections from neighbors, we're gonna sign like they're
That was my biggest question too. Neighbors know like sight line or anything, but I don't see.
I personally haven't heard anything, so that's a good thing, so.
So we don't usually hear anything till still.
You guys probably here probably speak.
There's what, a couple of houses on the north side of 15? No, because you're down further. You're more across from the chicken coop there. Because those the houses that are like right with the North Wolcott Road are on the others, like closer to the garage.
They're on the back side of that building,
They're higher up too.
they're
Higher up.
Yeah.
we're a little higher up, I think that, you know, I don't know if they would, I'm trying to think now, because when I pulled in the dooryard now, I look right straight at the, east end of that chicken. Kind of center to the east, so I don't think that next house, it shouldn't bother there. You know, I could shift it, you know, our whole intent, you know, down the road, trying to phase this project out a little bit, but our whole intent, to probably get rid of it at some point. The maintenance garage we're using now, you know, the old existing garage. I need room to pull my trucks in. Right now, we've got just enough room to be able to do it, pull them in, back them into the building. But, you know, if this facility works out good for us, I probably wouldn't need the second facility for any length of time. Right now, we're kind of subject to just smaller vehicles in there, just simply because of the size. So we do our pickups, cars, you know, smaller bulldozers or backhoes.
And then just like anything else, I mean, this will be subject to, you know, wastewater and all that stuff. That's not the purpose of this, right?
And those guys have spent a lot of that money.
Well,
They're doing their due diligence.
That's great. He's like, it's on the river.
Might have any questions?
Sounds like there's an allowance for going over height. It's checks the boxes and
Here's 20%, yeah, so.
And that's not even square footage, that's a volume. So it's, that's where it's.
Well, yeah, they call it.
So that.
But anyway, they made that math work.
So you'd be looking at 1,600 square feet. Right. 20% of the big building. We didn't want to make it too narrow. Kind of put it on paper.
They show the, not that you have to, but they show the footprint. Might be good just to see the footprint of the on the plan, you know, so you see the area that's raised above, but. No, yeah, I mean, you can see the dimensions there. Seems to check out.
The other parts of the condition review need to go through.
We put a roof deck up there for
Thank you, great rail trail power.
Occupancy.
My guess this is just the tower because it's a permitted use in the Route 15 corridor, right? Commercial?
It's already existing commercial property.
Because the only thing here is that, you know, the 50-foot tower is the.
Yes, well, I mean, that was a commercial building there. Right.
Yeah.
So what do we do here? Vehicle service.
So the way it's written, are we approving an allowed exception, or is it just simply allowed and there's no action required?
On a height limit, it just said it opens, you know, from section 2 that the DRB may permit roof appendages that exceed the.
Okay, so we do have to, yeah, we do have to say that.
Right, exceed the permitted and conditional height, so that would be the one.
So, on Route 15, even motor vehicle service and repairs project, the closest thing we have to that is a conditional.
So I guess the question is if it was already conditionally permitted for that for Wolcott garage, does that still carry over, or
Is it substantially different?
because it's a new structure, but I mean, it's the same type of, I mean, it's not like
It's probably less traffic.
passenger vehicle.
Different kind of traffic.
It's
They're
different. kind of
big,
traffic.
big rigs.
Yeah. But I remember the visibility there is pretty good.
Oh, yeah, and also, to be fair, the bigger is already there, we're just looking at putting the building now.
So this is not going to be in the exact same spot as the original building?
No, it'd be a building east end of the park.
It's the lot.
Yeah.
Like right now,
The guy would stay, so. The guy originally was staying, so.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Maybe not forever.
Yeah.
Good to see things going down, it's still.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it would happen anytime soon, but it's, the building's been kind of pieced together. It was great for, you know, changing tires and oils and things like that. It served its purpose, but for us.
Can't put an overhead crane in it.
No, can't get it now. I was hoping.
We already submitted a building permit, or?
I wanted to do this process first, just because if there was any neighbors or anything, I don't send them a check.
Do we have anybody online having this thing?
But contractor yard would more closely match.
Doesn't yard not necessarily imply a structure though?
We don't really have anything on our list of for contractor for.
It's a maintenance facility. It's really what it is, a maintenance facility.
It is.
And that's not on the list.
No.
So we've either got what is it, auto repair or
Vehicles, motor vehicle service repair.
That's probably what's already working for, right?
I mean, 75 to 80% of the vehicles will be a registered vehicle.
Yeah,
It's just a thing.
yeah, well, it's still more vehicle. Okay, so
All right, well, that sounds like a good fit. So we would put it in that category and say it's, DRB conditionally approved for the exceeding of the typical 40-foot height as satisfies the square footage percentage and it's ventilation and whatever else cupola basically.
as far as that part of it, yes. Yeah.
So Tom, that is, if it already has conditional use for an auto repair, that conditional use stays with the property regardless of ownership change, right?
It would stay with the property if they continued the same business. This is a totally different business.
Meaning business in type of business or business in name?
I don't agree with that at all, because they brought farm equipment in there. There's a 16-foot wide door on that old existing building. And he did corn choppers, he did all kinds of different things in there. So that was an equipment maintenance facility when Big Ben was around.
Up to you guys. It's different or not.
I guess the only difference is repairing someone else's stuff and repairing your own. I'm not sure that's hugely different.
Well, we're gonna make, we've got a lift that we're gonna be putting in there that does alignment on big trucks.
Yeah.
So we may take in other trucks to align their, because right now we have to travel 65 miles to get it done. And there's nothing out here in this north.
You do an alignment on a 10,000-pound ramp?
We can, yes, we'll be able to do them on, well, that's a nice thing, we'll be able to do them on 80,000 trucks.
How we're getting someone to do it on a 10,000-pound.
Yeah, no, it is. Very happy. 15,000 pounds. trucks in it, I have a hard time getting.
It's always either a height restriction or the alignment rig can't take the weight or whatever, so, I mean, honestly though, if you're gonna be taking in more than just your own fleet vehicles, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, that's what we plan to do, we have to, because the system's gonna cost $175,000. And we don't have enough vehicles ourselves to
Yeah,
pay for something.
and that does keep it closer in line with what was already been going on there in that regard, if they're doing more than their own fleet.
I mean, we'll still sell the few cars, occasional cars in there and stuff like Benny used to do.
You're gonna still sell sheds there too?
No, I'm not selling any sheds. But yeah,
Sure, that must have been a conditional use, right? Selling sheds.
Could be.
Yeah, motor vehicles, service and repair, as long as that matches.
I would go with. The V train, just so you know, we did have them come up. And they had no issues. We were talking about moving another entrance down the wall to the east. And so we can bring trucks in and drive them out. But because we already had one for the house and that, they didn't want to do another one.
Yeah, they'd rather have less points at entrance and exit, and they think the one you got is adequate for what you're doing.
We didn't think our traffic flow was anywhere near what Ben had in there.
Line of sight there's not too bad either.
No, we got a good site there.
Right, so I guess I would entertain a motion to approve the condition that the 50-foot tower falls within the 20% guidelines. I lost the section there, Tom, but you can probably fill that
The
in.
tower,
Yeah, I started looking through.
406.
Yeah, 406. And that the motor vehicle service and repair condition stays active, remains active.
Then I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Just random side question. You ever been by on, sure you've been by it on, I guess it's on 100, just, yeah, I want to say maybe in between Stowe and Mooresville, that big barn where they make coffee and they got a little cafe and whatnot. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I bring it up because it's a big industrial building, right? But then I feel like they're kind of going for the barn aesthetic.
They were.
So it's a metal building.
Oh, the one in Waterbury?
Yeah,
Is it
Waterbury Center down over the hill.
yeah,
Maybe it is one.
it is one.
Okay, okay, but yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's down off the road, right? But is that kind of the idea you're going for?
I guess I'm gonna try to make this look, fit the area.
Yeah, because that's a big building, it's an industrial building, but I feel like, just simple things like making it red, whatever, right? It does, seriously though.
But I don't think I'm doing red.
Yeah, well, honestly, we're not looking to tell you how to design the building, but I feel like,
Brown and yellow.
Don't put earthy color.
okay, so rusty steel then, leather and steel, that always looks nice after a few years.
That's a good school building. It was.
We did on all the rail trip bridges, it was great. Anyway, all right, well, that's all I was, so, obviously it's not gonna look like a barn, it's not gonna be wood, but you kind of going for that.
Yeah, we want to keep that kind of general.
Keep going. I think that helps a lot. I mean, it's a big building that's not there right now, but that's not necessarily the place for it. Good enough.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Okay.
Thank you.
Be nice to have you do the alignment rating time.
So we're gonna put 80,000 volts lifts in, so each lift will be rated for 80,000. And we'll be able to pick up complete dump truck and everything up. Work on it.
Where do we take town vehicles for that type of work right now?
But McLeod's down in Burlington, where you're gonna go to Buckberry,
Yeah, I noticed even, what's the name of the place there? Almost Jericho, Clark's Trucks. Like new ownership or something now.
Yeah, they just bought it by making dollars.
The Legion, yeah. But anyway, so they're making use and benefits of the town having some local facilities.
I hope so, food directions in there, so. That's the only thing that I don't tonight. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, you say this one is, this one's you also, isn't it? For the
Nick and Manosh.
So, 655, opening 2388, conditional use. This is for new construction. Description is construct 6 one-bedroom lodging units and convert existing 3-bedroom dwelling into 1 2-bedroom and 1 one-bedroom lodging units. Build a new water system for all the units and new wastewater for new structures. So I guess my is that it depends house, right?
Yeah, that's
So my question is, where are the 6 one lodging units
to the west, overlooking good.
to the west?
We can put in that new water system.
But these are like for Airbnb and maybe tenant housing. We're having a hard time, you already know, right up the longer employees, but Airbnb, what we're thinking right now.
I got some friends up around Greensboro, that have done the same thing. They couldn't, the people that work for them couldn't find anywhere to live, so they had to build housing to retain their employees so they could actually.
$1,500 to $2,000 a month.
Yes, this is balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Kitchen, basketball.
It'd be one room, yeah. That's, in the back, it's all gonna be one big open room, just like a tiny house.
Okay.
The rail.
Yeah. And kitchen and bath, or at least this.
So it'd be bedroom in the very bathroom, and then the kitchen dining, little area.
Three's gonna get split into 2, right? A 2 and 1.
So the 3-bedroom will get split into 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom?
Yeah, 2-bedroom upstairs, 1-bedroom too.
It's there, another 6, so you've got 8. So. What's the guest rooms?
What's the access to all these? The same driveways, everything else, but then
Yeah, we're gonna do a culvert, else to this ditch line right here, the state culvert comes across. And we're in hopes to do the culvert there. And we just have walk bridge. We're gonna have bridges to this, we're gonna keep it simple, we don't want cars in there, that's what we're wondering. Yep.
oh, okay, I was wondering, so this is the pavers or something.
Yeah, we're just,
Oh,
we're gonna use wood, boardwalk style.
Oh, nice. Make it kind of a camp feel almost.
Yeah.
And then have like central mailboxes or something. Or-
No, I mean, for Airbnb, they'll just park here.
No, this isn't long-term.
Oh, okay. So even if it's people that are working for you,
So people that are working for me, short term until we can do something.
got it. Okay, transitional.
This is, 2-bedroom upstairs, 1-bedroom downstairs. Right now I have one of my guys in there that just came back from the state of New York. Worked for me for years and didn't like it, then came back, so he's living in the house right now.
Again, you're not trying to keep anyone in any of these
Permanently, or for particularly long.
No. I mean, these are, we're looking at 450 to, 650 square feet, really small, like the tiny home, very, very, real close to the tiny.
Because eventually, might you have rail trail people?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
that's what we want to attract, with Airbnb, you'd want to attract the snowmobilers or, winter time, cross country.
So it would be 4 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're gonna have access down to that trail, or are they gonna?
Yeah, we already have one, it's right in here. We have an access, and you have the subdivision trail that comes across.
We got the same issue we just talked about earlier, but it was only 4 acres.
There's, I think it's total
We're
between.
talking about 8.
So these are well and stuff.
Well, if you're gonna be foreseeing that, and they're gonna be occupied, as short-term rentals. Would you fit the definition of residence, right?
It's as much a dwelling as well, all you have to talk about.
Exactly,
So according to the accessory dwelling thing, you only get one, right? Is that the issue?
That's different from this, but. Yeah, that's not something that we researched as far as, lodging goes,
Is it like a campground?
right?
It does.
Be that sort of thing.
Like four-season campground.
Well, yeah.
I think one down the road is Four Seasons.
Yeah. Right.
No, they fixed all those little cabins up. They have people in there year round. I live right across.
So, yeah, I know that you couldn't have like long-term, it's not many long-term rentals. That's how many acres?
Four on this side and then the garage zone.
So do we look at it as a campground then? Is that where?
Well, it's more akin to a campground or a motel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what I consider to be dwelling units is someplace which somebody's permanent residence.
sure. And whether it is someone that you're, basically trying to make sure it can show up to work, or whether it's someone who's stopping off the rail trail or whatever, that is definitely more akin to a motel or a campground
So
than a residence, I guess.
no, I'm not really aware of any of our rules that are really that specific about that. No, probably why it's conditional use.
Gotcha. So again, as long as water, wastewater, all that stuff checks out. And like you said, you're doing a whole new water system for all these buildings.
Yeah.
So, and wastewater.
We're gonna do a central, we'll do one well into a reservoir and then a reservoir from there, we split off to each place.
Nice. And what about the septic? Do you know where you want to do?
I think it's, yeah, they've already designed the PC designed that. It'll be a one collective system.
Right.
For all of them. That helps me on its own.
Pump stuff if you have to, or whatever, just get it all in one spot. Yeah.
So each one will have, are they gonna have cooking? Propane?
They will have a propane store.
I'm just reading, it's talking about each year-round dwelling unit has to meet the following minimum standards. And it lists, that it's either a housekeeping establishment for the owner occupancy, a rental or a lease. It says they have to have an independent cooking, bathroom / toilet facilities and sleeping facility.
Yeah, it's not really that easy, it's perfect steps.
We're gonna use the geothermal heating and cooling on these as well. We're gonna try, I'm doing it in Jersey Heights phase 2 in Morrisville right now. I got 18 single family home sites there and 34 duplex, we're gonna call them townhouses now sites. And we're doing a selected geothermal system where a bunch of wells will feed into one vault. And then from there disperse the heating and cooling to each building independently. We'd like to do the same thing with this one.
And it's a way to involve, I guess.
Yeah.
How large is?
This vault it should be an HDPE vault, so it'd be probably 22 feet long. And it'd be about 10 feet deep. Yes. We do a lot of those, we're just finishing one out the road. Looks good.
Next stop, Wolcott Village.
You need a sewage disposal system up here.
Yeah, it's not very, it's coming, it's.
I know.
It's gonna happen.
Play Park's looking at it too.
I'm sorry.
No, Play Park's
Oh, I
looking
think-
at it.
oh.
Yeah, it could be.
No,
Yeah. Yeah, there's been some studies out there.
we have money, but not, probably not, I'm sure not enough.
Yes, not the disposal system itself, it's the lines and services and all that, that's
Yeah.
the expense.
You may know, we're talking about the elementary. I know it's the case.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how are we breaking this down? Dwelling unit versus seasonal versus
It's not seasonal.
camp.
This is gonna be in use for season.
Right, so if it says seasonal is not more than 6 months, so this is gonna be more than 6 months.
Yeah, the people might not be there that long, but it will be in operation here. Someone might only be there 3 months, 6 months, but it'll be a full year round operating, winterized.
So the question is, what differentiates this from a dwelling unit versus a, what does it say? Camp? No, what's the language that said? Recreational? Because if I'm looking at definitions in the regs, a dwelling unit meets the definition of lot these buildings.
Big lodging, yes, lodging. Yes.
So the time of occupancy is what's separating them. Because by definition, these are dwelling units, but the fact that they're not being occupied by one person.
At what point does guest lodging become?
Is that
And is there
like a guest lodging towards density?
Mhm.
So,
That's exactly.
Well, when it becomes a residence, right? Or,
well, I'm not clear on that.
okay.
Yeah. How much of a hurry are you?
This process started, I spent some money on zoning stuff like that, but you gotta have that to come here.
Yeah.
And I just, I wanna do what's right here for Wolcott, so I'm not going in there trying to cram a 60-unit hotel on site.
I think the idea what you're trying to do makes a lot of sense. We just want to make sure we don't have to fill out the wrong form.
It's like what we're doing right now. Need such things in town. It's unclear how our regulations. I think we can look at that.
Do a little homework.
I mean, would we have to file under like a different permit or?
We just don't. I think we're not totally sure exactly what's the best way to approach it. Okay. So we want to do a little homework, read a little bit about what we've got in all the existing bylaws, all that type of stuff, and then come back to this.
Loyal County Planning Commission. They're basically the ones that come and bring these rules through. Not sure why that wasn't brought up, is a motel anywhere, a motel or anything like that. In town, like we had a that in breakfast. The old Maple, that in breakfast. That wasn't on a large lot.
Right.
But I also think this isn't like, it's not like a head camp, this is something a little more established. But it's all a little.
I would look at it exactly the same.
Yeah.
People can camp out in those hip camps in the middle of the winter,
Right.
They have to be fairly tough to do it. I'm not the 10th in January, but I see people do it.
So our definition of lodging is any structure containing rooms which are designed to be rented as sleeping units for persons on a temporary basis. Meals may be served in a common dining area. This definition shall include bed and breakfast, hotels, inns, motels, lodges, and hostels.
How does that tie into the density conversation?
If it's a lodging, then it doesn't trigger the density. If it's a dwelling unit, it does.
That makes my ideas on that, but
Well, it sounds, we may want a minute just to double check, but it sounds like that's the direction we're headed is these are lodgings, not dwelling units, and therefore it doesn't trigger all the density stuff. But.
I'm in no hurry, that's not gonna be done tomorrow.
I don't think it requires you to file any. Probably just a continuation of this meeting.
Yeah, so what would be, we would make a motion to basically just do some further investigation and reconvene at our next date.
Really, you just have to adjourn the hearing, which means you play it in pause button.
Oh, okay.
Where we let them talk.
And you're good with that, you got time.
But
I think your steel building package for, I think, 8, 9 months. I mean, it's crazy. We used to get them a month.
Yeah, I'll talk to my neighbors there, I guess.
If we do adjourn, though, we do have to pick a date. To revisit this, that is part of
A date, place and time,
Yeah,
right now.
so,
Next month.
yeah, this is not a regular schedule, it's not,
No, this has needed.
so when was?
Fourth Wednesday, I think.
Or this is the. Fifth one?
So it'd be the 28th.
Oh, I thought it was fourth Wednesday, I guess it's just a month. But aren't we typically fourth, because there's not always a fifth Wednesday? We're usually fourth Wednesday.
We are.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe look. Yeah, so you would be looking at 28th.
June 28th.
Yeah. I can be over.
Anyone else have any?
I'm good. 6 o'clock.
Right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing until June.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm good.
June 28th at 6 o'clock.
Make that motion.
A second. Further discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Venus. Okay. So, yeah, I think so. I'll be getting that, probably the best bet.
EDU, right?
It's each month project probably.
Thank you. I'm gonna, I'm not out here for any more else, anything else. Yeah. Have a good night. Thank you. You got it.
Yeah.
It's doing, it makes sense. Very nice tourism.
Nice meeting to discuss what to do with this thing.
Oh, no, that's all those are the wrong one. Those go in Holland. So there's.
Is the entire meeting adjourned?
No, not quite yet. So is there any other business that anyone needs to bring up over here? No, I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make that motion.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
This is.
Yeah.